Which is worse, today's generation of kids or today's generation of adults? Now, I've been on record a number of times saying today's generation of kids is just the absolute worst generation of children that I've ever seen or studied in my lifetime. Now, that doesn't exactly go without dispute. And anytime I mention something like that in a video, someone's always like, oh, well, the kid, I mean, the parents of these kids are the reason why they're the worst generation. And that in turn makes the parents, the adults, the worst ones in this scenario. And there's a number of things that make that, undisputed as to which way it is. And I want to talk about that today because there is such a drastic difference between what things were like when I was a kid growing up in the 1980s versus now, and it is just such a unique, dramatic shift. And a lot of things aren't for the better, and it's just kind of scary because you got to wonder if things are going to keep degressing in the future to the point that there's just such a collective of assholes in society that how is anything going to be able to function? So, now, a number of people, when I do bring up, I say, oh, the kid in this generation did this, or I mention that in the video, a number of people always say, well, the asshole children in this current generation of children tend to stand out more because of something like the internet. Because they have, this open platform for anyone to see more than just, someone saying like, the kid was an asshole at lunch and it doesn't leave the lunchroom, and that's all it's known about him. Whereas now it's like, someone could turn on the camera and be like, oh, some asshole at lunch decided to, hit a girl with his lunch tray upside the head and then pissed on her face. Okay, maybe something doesn't go that far. But anyway, if something like that did happen, in my day and age, they would have never left the lunchroom, whereas today it's like, oh my god, what are the fucking kids doing these days? Did you see that internet video? Did you see that report online of that kid that, hit the girl with the lunch tray and then pissed on her? So, something that happens that's just a foul asshole act by a child today, a teenager, an adolescent, what have you, can be just so much more widely known, get blown out of proportion in some circumstances a lot more today than when I was a kid. So, that is a fair argument and a fair point to make in that, maybe there's just as many asshole kids as there was when I was younger as opposed to today, but it's just that, the assholes were just, buried due to lack of the information that we get via technology here. And it is an interesting point to note. And, I do, however, notice things in the children today and the way that the current generation of kids and how they act, in that you could take something like Justin Bieber and the Beliebers, where you just see very, very little criticism of him. Very little criticism of his acts that warrant criticism. Whereas in my day and age, something like Michael Jackson, which was like, a Justin Bieber, hyper popular level, more so than Justin Bieber, where, like my friends and I, we would buy all the Michael Jackson albums. We'd, wait for the debut videos that used to air on network television. That's how a lot of the more popular videos, like Thriller, aired on, I think it was ABC. I can remember when that was a big thing when I was a kid. The Thriller video is going to debut tonight on ABC, and then the Black or White video debuted on Fox, and there'd be, big specials about it. Be a big, event. Anyway, I could remember myself and the kids that I grew up with, worshiping something like Michael Jackson, but at the same time, I could remember every single one of us making fun of Michael Jackson for being, effeminate, being girly, grabbing his crotch all the time, poking fun at him constantly, yet buying every album when it came out, being hyped every time a new video came out, being a level of fanboy in so many ways, but at the same time, saying, this guy's a fucking weirdo, though. he owns a pet monkey and just all that kooky shit at the Neverland Ranch. Like none of that was ever ignored. Whereas something like you go to the average Justin Bieber fan, the guy's God. Nothing Justin Bieber has done has ever been wrong or ever been worth like mocking or anything. So as far as today's generation of kids, I see that a lot more. Just the full out willing acceptance of something that they worship, to never give an ounce of criticism to it. Now, maybe that's just me being blind to the criticism that is out there. Maybe I just don't understand or know enough about today's generation of kids to say something like that compared to the generation of kids that I grew up with. But to, devil's advocate that, the parents aren't exactly, the greatest. Like my peers are the people raising these kids right now. So, I can't say like, well, my peers are trying to do a good job. It's just the kids are just such fucking assholes. No, my peers are doing what I feel is a bad job raising kids. Again, going back to when I was a kid, I can remember just so many things like engaging kids in the neighborhood in physical activities. Like the parents in the neighborhood, remember the street I grew up on had any of many, basketball hoops in the front yards, and the parents regularly coming out, to play with us. And there's a softball field on the next street over, and every Sunday there would be a neighborhood softball game during spring and summer, of course. And stuff like that in my neighborhood hasn't happened in over 15 years. Like, I drive through my old neighborhood and I never see on a beautiful day, never see the kids out playing, basketball or something like that. Now, does that absolutely mean like, oh, well, physical activity is the greatest thing to do, and if you're not doing that, then, you're lesser than the generation before you? No, it doesn't mean that. But when I see my generation of parents raising kids, it's more of, here's a video game, here's a movie, occupy yourself. Sit in front of that TV all day. I really don't feel like raising you. Just, watch this next season of SpongeBob. I'll put all the discs on for you, I see a lot more of that than a lot more of, hey, let's, sit down and play a board game together, the parent and child and stuff like that. That I saw a lot more of when I was a kid. So maybe kids are just more assholes today because, they just don't get enough parental attention. So does that in turn make the parents the worst in the scenario? The adults, the caretakers? And it is an interesting thing to look at, because I do see, like I said, such a dramatic shift from the way kids act when I was a kid to the way the parents acted when I was a kid compared to today, where it's like, what's really being done good on, both the parenting end and the child end of things. See so many asshole kids running around being assholes, and I don't see the parents being much better themselves. So I guess the one deciding factor, and of course this is all arbitrary, you can add whatever you want to either side of the argument. I'm not saying, one end is right or wrong. It's more just a discussion of things here, is that what is better about, or what is good in the parents right now, and what is good right now in the children that are being raised up right now. One of the shining bright spots that I see in my peers is the questioning of the norm, the questioning of the authority. Now, this, of course, always existed. But I can remember when I was a kid, it was like a real taboo to question religion, to question the rule of government. Like you kind of didn't do that. Now, yes, it happened, and I know like the Vietnam War, the questioning of that and the government happened before I was even born. But so much was just such accepted blindly. You nowadays just see like my peers making documentaries about, conspiracies and the talk of conspiracies. Like when I was growing up, conspiracy theories were just like something that was like laughed at. It was like, that's just silly. You're buying into that. You're buying into the fact that the moon landing might have been faked, whereas today it's like, well, we should question things like that. It's okay to question, 9/11. I'm not saying you have to all out accept it, but it's not as much laughed at as it was when I was a kid. And I see that as just an evolution of the human mind, and a healthy evolution at that. Questioning God's existence, it's fine. You don't have to stand firm on one side or the other to be right or wrong. But the fact that people are questioning it and it's being accepted, homosexuality being accepted, that's, I feel a large part of my generation growing up and saying, look, being gay is just no big fucking deal, accept these people. Whereas back when I was a kid, stuff like that was repressed. Anyway, one of the bright shining spots that I see in today's generation of kids is an understanding, and this may sound silly, but I'm going to hopefully, break it down for you, it makes a lot more sense, is a proficiency in technology. Now, when you go back to when I was a kid, the proficiency of technology was weighted so much more towards the parents, towards the adults. I can remember something like, as silly as when we first got a VCR in our house, my father was like, you touch that VCR, I'll break your hands, stuff like that. Whereas today, average little electronic device is, the ins and outs are more known of it by the kids rather than the adults. The workings of a computer, the understanding of technology and everything else. Hi, new dog. Sorry, he's trying to bring me a bone there, and he's doing it off camera. The reason why I say, that is a good thing for today's younger generation is that technology is the way of the future. And if you don't have an understanding of it, you will be left behind. So many people in my generation, where family households didn't get a computer or whatever growing up, were a bit behind in the working force and job placement. If you didn't get formal studying of it in college, etc., or if you did try to get into it in college, you were behind your other classmates that did have an understanding of it. So that, and the understanding of technology and the kids being so proficient with even just something like as silly as a cell phone. Yeah, it may lead to a lot of extracurricular no goodness and shit like that and dicking around. But as far as getting an understanding of the working of technology and being, a step ahead in the electronic age here, if you want to call it that, even though electricity's been around for over 100 years now, it's good for these kids to have an in and out, well-versed knowledge of this right now, as opposed to my generation that frankly didn't. So maybe that is the hopeful thing that is going to help turn around this generation, and something as simplistic and as complex on both ends as technology will help, turn the curve when the children of today, get raised up and, take over this world. May God help us all, or may whatever you believe in help us all. Yeah, so it's an interesting discussion. I wanted to share that here with you guys today because I don't think it's as open and closed as I've made it sound in the past. I've, leaned a lot more on. I still do believe that, personally, this generation of kids is the quote-unquote worst, but, it's not saying they're not without their merits as well. And, yeah, I do also believe that, with the advent of the it's beyond the advent now, of the internet and just being able to have a voice at any given time and anything being recorded, any foolish act of an adolescent being, uploaded on the World Wide Web for everyone to see, whereas opposed to when I was younger, it was like, the air stuff that adolescents did that was caught on a closed circuit TV on the news or anything like that. Still considered a faux pas to do that, spare a few things. So the internet is making, the ability to see the assholes in society become that much more prevalent for us all. So you got to wonder, there's no disputing, there's always been assholes in every generation. Am I just, overreacting because I see a lot more of this in full display of us right now because of something like the internet and YouTube and anything else that can, bring us these acts of assholery? Anyway, talked on way too long enough today. Hope I got you guys' week started off with a good little discussion video, and you're just all like, oh my god, my brain's working at such a high pace so early on in the week, or you probably stopped this video 12 minutes ago because you got bored. Anyway, have a good week, everyone. Have a fantastic day, a better tomorrow, and I've got nothing else left to say. Parents, parent your fucking kids. Stop making my generation look like fucking assholes. That is all. And kids, you shape up too. I don't want to speak. I'm not even a parent, nor do I. Yeah, anyway. Have a good day, everyone.